The Department of Defense increased its budget for this year of to a additional amount of $30.7 billion, which is a 4.1 increase of the previous year. Now, to really get a understanding of this is that ultimately it's just a bump, just like any other year to their budget, but it's always increasing. Which kind of leads us into our question today, which is does the United States need a bigger defense budget? And the answer is no, because ultimately the new budget overall is $1.01 trillion, which is crazy and outlandish compared to last year, where it's just slightly lower than a trillion, and the year before, just slightly 800 billion. This money is going away and is not being used for the American cause. And that's why it is no. And it will always be no because it's wasting our money, our tax-paying money. Which leads me into my reasons here, which are three reasons. I'll break it down by starting it down with number one, which is the United States already has the biggest, well, ultimately doubles and triples any other competitor, or multiple times triple any other military spending country. It has the biggest military spending than any other country in the world. And then second place compared to the United States is China, and it doubles it and almost triples its spending. And then any other country, it goes well above 5, 6 times and over maybe 200 times to any other country. And to really get a good insight of this is that it's 40% of the world's military spending in the whole entire world, which is crazy that the United States spends that much. 40% of the world's military spending comes from the United States. I mean, that's ultimately backed up by the fact that it almost triples its next competitor, which is China again. And that simply shows why we don't need it in the first place, because we're already number one. And the second place person is, like three times less than us almost. And that's just ridiculous from my perspective, at least. And which leads me to my second point here is ultimately we don't need it. Why do we need this much money to sustain, our lives when a country like China is already doing it at a lower and efficient cost? And it's wasting our money. We don't need it. Why do we need it? Because again, China, second competitor, is spending 3 times less that. And it ultimately shows that China can maintain itself, be successful, help its citizens, help grow its country significantly, just like the United States can. But the main factor here is that the United States is taking a wild majority of that money and giving it to the military instead of its people, like China is, which kind of shows is that we don't need it. We don't need this extreme budget because ultimately it makes no sense. And any person would know that because we're already at the top. Why spend more? And why have to, double that and triple that when you could just be neck and neck with China or the next competitor, keeping an even market? And any other, smart businessman would do that. They wouldn't go all the way above just to create some product, very expensive, spend all the majority of their money to, yield product. They would spend the least amount of money. And so from an economic standpoint and, business standpoint, businesses would never do that. Which leads me into my last point here is that we should allocate, these, huge financial support to other areas, particularly to Native Americans, who ultimately had the worst statistics in the United States, where more, oppression, the worst schools, the worst environment, a lot of poverty, a lot of people being killed, a lot of murders, a lot of instances which the Native Americans themselves can't handle. And we all know it. Why don't we owe the Native Americans in which we took their livelihood away? Why don't we advocate the money towards them? Now we move on to schools. Why don't we advocate it to them? The schools that build America, build its children, build its future leaders, future people that will make changes on America for the future of generations, leaving legacies, leaving an imprint on American society. Why don't we invest in that instead of the military? Because ultimately, schools will help individuals within the United States grow and mature and discipline. And then that leads me to other points is that employment. Why don't we use this as employment opportunities? Maybe help poverty, help people that are homeless get on their feet in a sense that they're able to have a job and there's facilities in which they can maintain themselves temporarily always. If we look at Texas or where in certain parts there's a lot of immigration and they're homeless, they have to sleep on the streets, which is very sad. And then VA benefits, veteran affairs, basically benefits to help those who have themselves protected our United States and served and gave their life for us, have received medical issues. Why don't we give money back to those people that are ultimately part of the protecting? Because a lot of veterans complain about their VA benefits not being the standard that it should be, which leads me into the bigger part here is that ultimately the United States does not need to increase or need a bigger defense budget because it's useless and it's a direct no. And ultimately, I think we should allocate this money towards more human causes to make America better, to make America great and resourceful of its sources, particularly in this area, money and economics, to help our economy grow, not only from a money standpoint, but from a perspective that it help its citizens grow and mature and become great leaders to lead its country. And that is why the United States does not need a bigger defense budget. Thank you.